That's what he said.
This is the thing about cars. Recording, as always, in Atlanta, Georgia, at Strongbox West. Around the table, we've got
Tim.
And
Ben.
Becca.
And Mickey, and a number of other things to go over today. But on the last episode, we just discussed if you're driving at the speed of light and you turn on your headlights, what happens? And I happened to stick it on my own personal Facebook page. I said, hey, you guys, we're answering this question right now. And 2 people in the last 5 minutes have also tried to answer the question on my own Facebook page. And someone says exactly what we were saying, that one friend of mine, Aaron, says nothing should happen because the light is traveling at the same speed that you were traveling. And then Ricky says something similar to a sonic boom that vibrates the fabric of space-time like a sonic boom vibrates the air. I kind of like that idea. You know, if we could vibrate the fabric of space-time, you could then manipulate it and do some fun and interesting things with the fabric of space-time.
Well, I guess it depends on if we're heating up or cooling down.
I was thinking of making a skirt.
Wait, what?
A skirt?
You want to wear a skirt?
Space-time?
I see where he went there.
Yes.
I thought he was cross-dressing again.
I'm sorry. I apologize to all of our listeners for that.
Confused. But see, the DeLorean always came back super cold, so I guess it depends.
Right.
The noise that it makes is if you're heating it up like light or cooling it down like Doc Brown.
Right.
And that rhymed, by the way.
So one of our questions we have on my Facebook page, also from my friend Adam Hart, he says, undercarriage neon, is it time that it made a comeback?
No.
No.
Ben?
I'm inclined to say no. However, if you think it will increase your chances of mating, go for it.
Please don't mate. I've seen that movie.
That's it.
Wait, what was that movie called again?
What? Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going.
Right.
The one where the future is nothing but idiots.
Oh, Idiocracy.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that one.
Yes. It's worth seeing.
Okay.
It's turning into a documentary, but it's worth seeing.
All right. So sorry, Tim. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Nothing.
Oh,
no,
I'm sorry.
I was intent on Becca making her great point.
Right.
Okay.
So on to question number 2.
Well, though, I want to say with that, everything that we state, anybody, it's an opinion, though. Make your car however you want it. Don't care about what anybody thinks. We're always asking, when you think about my cars or this or that, do what you love.
You know, and I
I'll point and laugh,
I suspect Adam's asking the question specifically to make fun of the notion, but I agree with you. If that makes you happy, rock on.
Yeah, if you want to hot glue tchotchkes all over your car, we're going to look. We might laugh. We'll probably take pictures, but do what you want. Do what you love. It's your car.
Just make sure to glue them on well enough that they don't fall off while you're going down the road.
Yes,
Right.
thank you.
Yes,
Right.
and don't ask me about my opinion of your vehicle.
If you're not ready to hear the opinion.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
And except now they're doing it with LED kits that you can control via remote control and change the color at will.
Oh, yes.
So, you know, it doesn't have to be neon, Adam. I'm just saying.
Right. I understand the rock lights that Jeeps put on and other off-road vehicles. I can understand that when you're actually trying to see where you're climbing. I get that. Just not for cruising down the road with something green or purple or...
No, that's
Right.
when you're supposed to wear night vision goggles when you're driving.
As one does.
As one does, yes. All right, so the second question I want to tackle is from our friend Bodie Pennington. Bodie, who hopefully will join us on the show one day if we can get schedules to work out. He asks a really serious question instead of all the peanut gallery questions we get here. He asks, talk about wheel spacers and if they cause problems, which I think is a really decent topic, a wheel spacer. First of all, what is a wheel spacer for the uninformed?
Okay.
I'll take it if nobody... Yeah, okay, go ahead.
If you buy a set of wheels for your car and the design of the wheel causes the actual wheel tire combination to sit too far in towards the center line of the vehicle, this spacer sits in between the wheel and the hub and pushes the wheel farther out.
Yeah, I wouldn't even have gone as far as you bought some wheels, because really you can use a spacer with
your factory
whatever.
wheels.
Yeah,
Right.
whatever the car came with. It just
Yeah.
it goes in between the wheel, and by that, whatever you want to call it, the rim, mag, whatever euphemism. So in between that and the wheel hub, which is when you remove the wheel, you've got the thing with the
The lug nuts, the bolts. Yeah.
Right.
The bolts coming out. So right there, and you can buy different increments, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, and it pushes your wheels out.
Right. It gets them to a place that the car manufacturers like to call hub-centric.
Right.
Which took me a while to understand when I was a teenager growing up. And I'm like, what does that mean, hub-centric? Because I'm looking at a wheel from this perspective where you see the wheel and it's a circle. And I'm like,
Right.
isn't the center of the hub simply at the center of the wheel? And that's not quite right. So you have to look at the tire as if you're in front of the car and draw a line down the center of the tread. And that point should line up with a point on the...
It's basically when you turn the wheel, your wheel should turn perfectly around the center point.
And that's the hub.
Well,
That's what they require. That's what
But there
we're calling
is
the
a hub.
Yeah.
So
Right.
yes, it's your suspension geometry
Yes.
dictates where that point of turning is going
in
to
the
be.
Ackerman steering geometry.
Right. So the spacer is putting a little more distance between the actual metal part of the wheel and the faceplate of the whatever that thing is called.
The hub.
The hub.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And so that helps you preserve the geometry that the manufacturer wants you to have.
Yes, or you can change it to
For
something
style's
the
sake.
way you want it to be.
Right,
Because,
right.
there's, I mean, I actually have those on my race car. So, but the ones that I have are not off the shelf ones. These
Okay.
were custom machined to match the center ring on the hub and the ring on the face of the wheel, so that everything is lined. Let's say if you're looking at the wheel, up, down, left, right, and it's not just the lug bolts that are causing that alignment to happen.
For
Ben looks like he's got something on his mind.
No.
Okay.
forewarning to anybody considering this, though, that sometimes the lug bolts that are there don't always work perfectly, like what you were saying with off the shelf, and you end up having to cut off lug bolts, or it gets really ugly. So be very careful and specifically shop for things. But my Mustang has wheel spacers in the rear.
So did you have to install longer lug studs or lug bolts in order to accommodate that?
She made things. Sorry, it made things a little bit complicated. I try not to say she too much and mention names and all that. I'm crazy, I know, but it was interesting figuring out what fits and what works with that and the whole thing. Everything you do affects your geometry. So yeah, I was throwing out Ackerman over there because it's a word you don't get to use often.
So Bodie wants to know if wheel spacers cause problems, and I'm aware of using wheel spacers to actually correct problems. But that if you're a person who's more into style than function, at what point does putting in a wheel spacer cause problems?
I think if the weight isn't put on,
Right.
where I'm
A
good
lot
at
of if you have a generic wheel spacer, you don't have a round hole for where it slides over the lug studs. It's an oval, and so it's not self-centering. And
Okay.
with it not being self-centering, it's going to droop to the bottom as you install your tire and wheel assembly, and then you have an out of balance system as you roll down the road at 75 miles an hour.
Yes.
Now, if you're really careful and you're able to reach through the spokes in your wheel and line
Center it
everything
again.
up, and center it properly, then it's a bit more hassle to go through, but yeah, it still works.
I've actually seen the majority of aftermarket just off the shelf ones with round holes. So I don't know if it's
Gotcha.
just a particular type or just the availability now.
Right. Or what page on eBay you got it from. It's,
Right.
depending on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that I had considered, though, and I'm not entirely sure. I know the people that were pushing out the wheels, not with spacers, but other ways, were putting a lot more pressure onto their rear axle as far as the weight of the vehicle, the way it sat back there. And then if you were a vehicle with a differential in the rear, it was causing issues. But this is when they were more extending the axle as opposed to using wheel spacers. You know the ones I'm talking about?
Right. Yeah. And the problem with having them in the fronts is that if you've pushed your tire wheel assembly farther out, you can cause rubbing issues on the fender, or if you have bought the wheels with what we call wrong back spacing,
Right.
you can contact the inner fender as you're turning. So yeah, there's
Right.
It's not to be. It's not a process to be taken lightly.
Right. And then
Yeah.
there's the people really messing with their cambers and just no.
Right. In racing, more camber is good until it's bad.
That's one way to put it. Yes.
yes.
So you don't think that the wheel spacers you could ever go so far as to cause a weight issue though, since you're not really extending that axle. That the point where the weight meets the axles and all that is still exactly the same. I'm kind of thinking this through out loud.
Right.
So
I'm
really,
following you.
If you've done something wrong, the penalty is really going to be more in the wheel area, as opposed to
Yeah.
Right.
And also you have to take into account that depending on how thick that spacer is, you may not get enough engagement on your lug bolts.
Exactly
true.
what I was
Well,
thinking.
that
Right.
was kind of that little bit earlier. So putting that aside, yeah, you need to make sure it fits under your lug bolts. So basically, you've got the original ones where you put the nut and you attach your wheel. But instead of attaching your wheel with your original lug nuts, you're attaching the spacer, and then the spacer itself has these lug bolts on there that you then put through the wheel with their bolts.
Okay, yeah, we're talking two different types because
Okay, well, those are
there's-
the ones that I have the experience with, that it just kind of all goes.
right. It's got its own set of lug
right,
studs that
right.
you're now bolting onto.
Well, you got
Where-
custom, you said, too, though.
Right, but they just the ones on the race car, they just have the four round holes for the stock. Well,
Bodie, this is all your fault.
extended.
Bodie, we've gotten
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're
It's
running
all
the
your fault.
original lugs just straight through the spacer as opposed to.
Yeah, except they're extended lugs because race car.
Well, yes.
And because it takes up that much more space of the thickness of the wheel plus the thickness of the wheel spacer, the lugs have to be longer so that you can get the
Yes.
full engagement of the
Right.
the actual bolt.
So there's two different versions if you want to imagine. There's one that has its own lugs that stacks and one that doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I would point out that you're adding weight to your race car.
Yes, but it's
'Cause they
down
can be
low
heavy.
and it's aluminum. They're aluminum spacers.
That's, yeah.
And if the weight might be worth it for gaining an advantage with something else, right?
right.
Well, it's weight
Because-
down low.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. And if it gets you through the turn quicker, every mile an hour that you go through the turn quicker
Right.
is a mile an hour you're going down the straight with.
Which is one of the reasons why my Mustang has it. They're notorious for that body style, for rolling over. So lower the car, spread out the wheels, put the weight down low. Yeah, that's
Rolling over in a Mustang.
another story.
Have you seen Becca Drive?
Oh, okay. All right.
No,
That's it.
no. There was a place that is now called MPS, and back when my car was the body style, I was watching, and it seemed like every other car that was coming in was a car that somebody had rolled over. So I'm not saying there was a recall. I'm saying it was probably a certain driving style, but an awful lot of the cars in the Mustang graveyard was a rollover.
Okay. That's just like all the videos you see of cars crashing as they burn out of a Cars and Coffee meet is 75%
Let's
Mustangs.
not pick on Mustang here.
Let's switch gears, shall we?
No, I'm just saying it's because most of the more of the cars coming out of those places are.
I'm giving him evil eye.
I'm putting an end to this
videos.
conversation.
Yes.
Let's move on.
All right, Dad wants us to stop.
That's right. And I want to hear, and
Are we
we all
there
want to
yet?
hear. I've seen it. You guys haven't seen it. Ben's wife, Jen,
Oh yeah.
has this sweet new car. Ben, what'd she get?
Well, she got a Dodge Challenger, and what had happened was last month we were on vacation up in Spokane, Washington, where her family are all from, and we had a Challenger as a rental car, and she really liked it. She loved it. In fact, she loved its retro charm. She liked the way it rode, things like that. She wasn't really after the muscle car aspect so much, but she just liked the car as a whole. And so after a bit of talking about it and some shopping, we took one home. It's a gently used 2018, and it's the SXT Plus, so it's one level up from the bottom. It's got the V6 automatic. The Plus gives it larger wheels and nicer seats. They're heated,
Which is what
and
Jen
vented
really
seats.
wanted anyway. She didn't need a screaming Hemi or anything like
Right,
that. Yeah.
right. But yeah, after my Mazda has heated seats, and she fell in love with those. So she said, "Do they make these with heated seats?" And I did a little research, and sure enough, if we went up to the Plus model, we could get the heated seats. But they're also vented; they'll blow air conditioning on your butt, which is very nice.
So
I love
all
that.
new meaning to the term blowing air up your ass. I'm sorry, can I get away with it? You said ass earlier.
I did say that earlier.
Bum. We'll say bum.
Bum.
Yeah. So you have a
Posterior.
heated and cooled butt going down the road. But yeah, it's a pretty nice car. It was pretty gently used. It still looks new. And so far, we're having a lot of fun with it. She enjoys driving it around, and it's got Sirius XM that she's really getting into.
Yes.
We looked at it. Some of the Pluses have different packages on them. We found out that the one with the sunroof was probably not a good idea because that intrudes into the headroom enough that I actually had a little problem with it.
Huh. Really?
Yeah.
And you couldn't
It's
lower the seat?
Not enough. Well, on the passenger side, you can't get as low as in the driver's side, apparently, because they're different seats.
Really?
Yeah, the passenger seat.
Oh, yeah.
I
has-
usually see it the other way around. The passenger seat can go lower.
Well, it depends on a lot of vehicles. You get the premium seat on the driver's side, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you're just luggage seat on the passenger side.
My Mazda's that way. My Mazda has full electric adjustment on the driver's side and no electric on the passenger side. So
I wonder if you can get the full electric on the passenger side out of a JDM.
I don't know.
A JDM Challenger?
But
No, you could
anyway.
probably get one out of a higher market Challenger out of a pull apart.
Right.
As long as you're over 16 years
As long
old.
as you're over
Just, yes,
16.
just wire it yourself. Just
Right.
But no,
yes,
she-
back to the Challenger.
yeah, she's been very enthusiastic about it. She just ordered the complete package of WeatherTech floor mats and sunshades and all that.
Right.
And she has seen in pictures that there are some of them that have like this thing on the front of it on the grill. If you can picture this, it's got a little nameplate that says Challenger toward the right side headlights.
Yes.
And in some of the online groups, people refer to that as the Star Trek lettering because it's modern angled block letters.
Yes.
Ooh.
But there was one variant a couple of years ago that came with a little script style, and I'm scripting it.
That's the one I was used to. Yeah.
Yeah, like they looked like in the 70s. And that part will fit on any 2015 through 18 Challenger, so she wants me to put one of those on it.
Excellent. Do you
Go
have to
down to
replace the entire
ballpark.
grill for that, or just the
No.
emblem?
No.
The piece itself
Yeah.
can be changed, although I'm reading that it can be a real bear to get to the fasteners on the back. Now, some of the guys are saying if you're careful enough, you can just pop the old one off without damaging the grill, but I'm not sure I want to try that.
Right.
I would be careful just because it could be plastic.
Well, it
so.
is plastic, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You should get my wife Jen to help you with that. She's got a good hand for
Well,
that sort of thing.
and I was also saying I have hands that can fit
Yeah.
into
Oh, yeah.
small spaces.
But I would say we're going to have a lot of fun with it, and look for a long-term test review series on it in our blog.
And actually, one of the features, you're going to find this funny, but I went and looked at them when they were newer, and it had an interesting feature that I don't think I'd ever really thought of. I don't think I've ever really seen it on cars. When you open the door, the window drops down a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's just the clearance, the ease of opening and closing the door.
The first car I saw that on was a 90-something BMW convertible.
You see, I don't open doors of B&Ws too much. I
Yeah,
just-
but yeah, it's because to make the window a little more flush mount, there's a little overlap at the top there because it's not a fully framed window. So yeah, it's pretty clever and it works.
And I've always liked it. I like the job that they did. They did a very good job with the styling,
They did.
except there is always one thing. And it's one of those things when you look at it, it's kind of like when you're looking at a picture at a wall and is it crooked or is it not? There is something visually off. And I don't know if it's too high, if the ride height's too high, or if it's too narrow. Something in that aspect.
Well, I've got something in mind. I don't know if it'll ring a bell with you or not, but one criticism I have of the current Challenger styling, which goes back to 2008 and had a revision in 14 or 15. If you look at the early 70s Challenger, it's very lean and light looking, and the new one is big and bricky looking. It's very thick, and the fact that the door on the side doesn't even have a trim strip on it, there's nothing to break up that big slab side.
Right.
So it looks
Yeah.
very thick and heavy.
It's a little meaty.
Other than that, yeah, they did a pretty great job with it. Maybe that's part of it, because when I look at them and go, that does look pretty thick, but I still like them.
So Jen likes her Mopar.
She does.
Excellent.
She does. The revision they did a few years ago, I think, made it look even better. They went to kind of a split trim inside the grille and a couple of other little minor things, and they completely redid the interior, which is much nicer after the revision.
Yeah, the last time I drove one, it didn't look nearly as nice as what she's got on hand right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what we haven't been doing?
What's that?
We haven't been doing our car trivia pieces.
Oh my
right.
goodness,
Oh,
you're
wow.
right.
So the last couple episodes we've missed it. We're running out of time. Should I go ahead and tackle one, or you want to save it for
Sure.
later?
Yeah, throw one out there.
All right. So today's element of car trivia, which we've been calling Jalopy Joust, and I don't know. I think I need a new name for this, but all right. For the time being, Jalopy Joust. The question is, what car introduced as a two-seater and later celebrated in a song was Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1958, 1987, 1989, and 2002?
Repeat that. First introduced
You
as
got
a
it?
two-seater.
What car introduced as a two-seater and later celebrated in a song was Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1958, 1987, 1989, and 2002?
See, the car I'm
Was
thinking-
it,
Oh,
multiple choice, was it the Thunderbird? Was it the Mustang? Was it the Corvette? Or was it a GTO?
Well, since you said introduced as a two-seater, my inclination is to go with the Thunderbird.
see, that's where I was
Yes.
going in the back of my mind before I totally forgot it was always multiple choice. I was going for Thunderbird, but I was questioning the Motor Trend for the later on ones. I could see earlier Thunderbirds being Motor Trend, and anytime Mustang is one of the options, I have to stop. I have to stop because little known, and this could have worked its way into trivia somewhere else, obviously, the original Mustang concept, which was a 1962, believe it or not. There was a 62 and a 63 Mustang. The original 1962 was a two-seater mid-engine V4. Shocking. I didn't say that wrong. So and now I'm doing this. What were the other two? You said GTO?
GTO,
And-
Corvette, Mustang, or Thunderbird?
Well, you wouldn't say originally introduced as a two-seater on the Corvette because who has seen a four-seater Corvette?
Not out of the custom market, no.
Right.
Maybe Ty when he was cutting cars in half, and you know, that's
Tim
tough.
hasn't rendered a guess yet. What do you think? Is it which
Oh,
car is it?
I'm 100% Thunderbird.
You're 100% Thunderbird, Ben?
Yeah, I'm
He
going
said
with
Final answer?
Thunderbird.
Yeah.
And I was
Becca, what's your final
originally
answer?
leaning toward Thunderbird. It's that Motor Trend that's
Give me an answer.
sticking to.
It
She
is
doesn't wanna give
possible to
Fine.
overthink this.
I am going with the Thunder Tang.
The Thunder Tank.
Oh, that's called riding the fence, ladies and gentlemen.
The answer is Thunderbird.
Yeah.
Yay.
And the
So
song
it
that they were
was in
questioning,
Motor Trend in the later.
the song that they were referencing is a song that was done back in 1959 by the Delicates called Black and White Thunderbird, which everyone's like, okay, which song?
I don't know that
Celebrated the
song,
T-Bird.
but the Bob Seger's "Making Thunderbirds" came to my mind.
Making
I
Thunderbirds?
thought of Beach Boys, Fun, Fun, Fun.
Exactly.
Till their daddy takes the T-Bird away.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that wasn't, the T-Bird was an afterthought in that song.
And
So, yeah.
I can list 50 Mustang songs, but in case anybody heard me smacking the table,
All right.
that's something I need. And maybe if we have a listener that's good at music or something, I always ask people, there is this song I've been dying to have remade for years. So if anybody does music,
Just find someone with the band, Becca.
I try that. They tell me no.
Oh.
It's a Prince song that I need remade if anybody.
Well, that's all we have time for today. So thanks as always for listening. You can find us at thethingaboutcars.com or on Facebook. Search for The Thing About Cars. We always welcome your questions and your comments and your trivia items. And that's it. We'll look forward to speaking with you again. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. This has been The Thing About Cars. We'll see you on the road.